Good evening, dreamers. Tonight, let the whispers of an ancient forest guide you to a world of mystery and wonder. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and imagine stepping into a place where shadows dance and secrets linger. Let this tale of courage and whispers carry you gently into a peaceful sleep. The sky was a deep and endless twilight when Arundel first glimpsed the edges of the forest of whispers. He stood at the threshold, his sharp eyes tracing the knotted roots that clawed their way through the ground like the fingers of ancient hands. Behind him, the familiar lands of his elven kin stretched into the horizon. Before him, shadows wove a dense tapestry, hinting at realms untouched by sunlight, where mystery was as thick as a fog winding through the undergrowth. He hesitated, feeling the forest breathe, almost sentient. Stories about this place had lingered in Arendel's mind since he was a child. Elders spoke in hushed tones of leaves that carried the voices of the long gone and the nearly forgotten. No one knew precisely what lay within, only that those who entered seldom returned unchanged. Yet it was not fear that kept most at bay, but reverence. This forest held secrets not meant for every soul. And so, many simply turned away, content to let the unknown remain undisturbed. But Arundel had been different. Since youth, he had been consumed by questions that the elders could not answer. Whispers of the hidden realms intrigued him, and the pull of the unknown was as natural to him as breathing. Tonight, as the stars awakened overhead, he felt that same pull stronger than ever, an invisible thread weaving through his heart, tugging him forward. With a quiet breath, he stepped into the forest. The trees seemed to close around him immediately, their twisted branches intertwining like a woven spell. He felt the temperature drop as if the forest itself guarded its secrets within a cloak of cold shadows. The silence was deep, weighty, settling around him like an ancient pact. And then faintly the first whisper rose. It was barely a breath at first, a murmuring of the leaves that blended seamlessly with the rustle of wind through the canopy. He strained his ears, wondering if he'd imagined it. But soon the sound grew clearer. It was not mere wind, nor the calls of distant birds. It was language, soft, elusive, and just beyond his understanding. Words brushed the edge of his mind, a melody that beckoned him to follow. A thrill sparked within him, and he moved deeper into the forest, listening intently. The whisper grew more distinct, the syllables more recognizable as his keen senses tuned to the forest's strange dialect. He could hear fragments, hints of direction wrapped in riddles. Beyond the twisted oak, follow the shadow's song, heed the silver fern. Each phrase seemed alive, guiding him like a thread spun from shadow. He passed trees whose bark bore strange markings, vines that twisted in patterns too deliberate to be random. The path unfolded before him with an unspoken invitation, pulling him further from the safety of the known. Yet, as he moved, he sensed something more than guidance in these whispers. There was caution woven in their tones, a distant echo of regret. The voices seemed to belong to those who had once lived in these woods, ancient souls who had passed into legend. Erindor felt their presence, a mix of sadness and curiosity as they observed him, assessing his purpose, testing his resolve. He wondered if they were remnants of travelers who, like him, had stepped too close to the forest's secrets and had found themselves forever woven into its mystery. The deeper he walked, the louder the whispers became, merging into a haunting chorus. Each leaf seemed alive, trembling with stories, hints of battles long past, and vows made under moonlight. The forest hummed with a history he could sense, but not fully understand, as if each tree held a memory, each root a tale buried in the earth. Finally, Erindor reached a clearing where the whispers intensified, swirling around him like a cloak of invisible hands. In the center of the clearing stood a great tree, ancient beyond reckoning. Its branches spread wide, casting shadows that danced across the forest floor like spirits. As he approached, the whispers grew quieter, as if the forest held its breath, watching his every step. Erindor placed a hand upon the tree's rough bark, feeling a pulse of life that thrummed beneath his fingertips. It was as if the tree was waiting, aware and yet silent. Then, in a voice barely louder than a sigh, it spoke. "Are you here to listen, or to seek?" The question was soft but undeniable, resonating deep within him. Erindor found he had no answer. He was both, and neither. He was here because he could not stay away, and as the whispers resumed their gentle murmur, they seemed to accept this, guiding him onward toward the shadows that lay deeper still. The journey had only just begun, and yet Erindor felt the weight of the forest's silent promise to reveal its mysteries, but only to one willing to listen beyond the words, to seek what lay hidden in the silences. Erindor pressed forward, his footfalls muffled by the thick blanket of moss that covered the forest floor. Around him, the trees seemed to lean closer, their gnarled branches twisting in unnatural angles, casting shadows that wove together like dark threads in an endless tapestry. The whispers followed him, though softer now, lingering like half-forgotten memories murmured in an ancient tongue. As he ventured deeper, the air grew cooler and an eerie stillness settled over the forest. The usual sounds of woodland life, the calls of distant birds, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, were conspicuously absent. In their place was an emptiness, as though the forest had swallowed its own voice, holding its breath in anticipation. Erindor felt eyes on him, though he saw no movement among the trees. He sensed presences hidden just beyond his vision, like phantoms watching from behind a veil. Shadows seemed to drift at the edge of his sight, taking shape and then fading, as if they were caught between this world and another. These were not mere tricks of the light. There was a sentience here, a gathering of souls bound to the forest in some timeless bond. And then, through the whispering leaves, he heard them. The faint echoes of voices, not like the tree's murmurs, but different, almost human. The sound was filled with a distant sadness, a hollow tone that sent a shiver down his spine. He paused, scanning the dim forest, and there, woven among the shadows, he saw shapes moving with a ghostly grace. They were travelers like himself, or perhaps what was left of them. Erendor could make out faint outlines of cloaks and armor, glimmers of hands and faces, though their features were blurred, faded as if caught in a dream. The figures moved slowly, as if bound by invisible chains, their movements tethered to the ancient trees. One figure, cloaked in shadow, drifted toward him, and Erendor found himself rooted in place, transfixed by the figure's hollow gaze. There was a look of recognition in those eyes, as though the figure saw in him something familiar, a reflection of its own journey. "Why do you walk this path, elf?" the figure whispered, its voice like leaves rustling in a forgotten wind. "I seek the secrets of this forest," Erendor replied, his voice steady despite the unease prickling at his skin. "I seek what lies beyond." The figure regarded him in silence for a moment, then extended a hand, palm up. In his hand was a fragment of something, a shard of silver that glinted even in the dim light. "Then heed the shadow's song, but tread carefully. Not all who wander here leave with what they sought." The figure's hand opened, and the shard dissolved into the air, vanishing like mist. As Erendor watched, the figure turned away, retreating into the shadows with the others, leaving him alone once more. He felt a tremor of doubt creep into his heart, but the whispers were insistent, urging him onward, guiding him with riddles wrapped in murmurs. He took a cautious step forward, then another, feeling the weight of the forest's presence pressing down upon him, as if it were watching his every move, waiting for him to falter. The trees thickened as he continued, growing closer together until they seemed like pillars in a vast ancient temple. Strange markings adorned their bark, symbols he didn't recognize, yet that felt oddly familiar. He reached out, tracing a symbol with his fingers, and felt a pulse of energy beneath his touch. A heartbeat that resonated with his own. The whispers swelled around him, their voices blending together in a haunting chorus. And he realized they were singing, a low and mournful tune that tugged at something deep within him. It was a song of longing, of dreams unfulfilled, and journeys left incomplete. The words were elusive, slipping through his mind like water through his fingers. But the feeling was unmistakable, a sorrow that seemed to belong to the forest itself. Erendor sensed the presence of the shadows growing stronger, felt their silent plea echoing through the forest. They were bound here, caught in a web of fate that had claimed them as its own. Perhaps they too had sought the secrets of the forest, only to be ensnared by its mysteries. But Erendor felt a resolve rise within him. He was not like them. He would not be swayed by the allure of shadows. The whispers had called him for a reason, and he was determined to uncover the truth they guarded so jealously. With renewed purpose, he pressed onward, his footsteps echoing softly through the silence. And as he moved, the whispers changed, their tone shifting from sorrow to something sharper, like the edge of a blade. They spoke of a silver fern that lay ahead, a marker of sorts, guiding those who dared to follow the shadow's song. The forest grew darker, but Erendor's resolve burned brighter. He would find the path, uncover the hidden truth, and as he journeyed deeper, the whispers continued to follow, a haunting melody that wrapped around him, binding him to the forest's ancient heart. The air grew colder as Erendor moved deeper into the heart of the forest, his breath misting in the dim light. Shadows clung to the ground, thick and unmoving, like pools of ink spilled across the forest's floor. The whispers grew softer, almost reverent, as if they too sensed that he was nearing something sacred, something hidden beyond the grasp of mortal understanding. He had lost all sense of time. In this part of the forest, hours and moments tangled together, and the world felt suspended, held in a place that was neither night nor day. His mind, usually sharp and attuned to every shift in the natural world, felt foggy here, like a ship caught in a silent sea. Only the whispers kept him anchored, pulling him forward, threading through the mist like gossamer strings. At last, he came upon a towering tree unlike any he had seen before. It was ancient, its roots snaking across the ground in massive coils, its bark a silvery grey that shimmered in the dim light. Its leaves were unlike the dark, verdant foliage surrounding him. They were delicate and silver, glowing faintly, as if lit from within by starlight. This was no ordinary tree. It stood as a guardian, a silent sentinel over secrets buried far beyond its roots. Erendor felt his heart quicken. He knew instinctively that this tree marked the boundary between the world he knew and a realm hidden from sight. It was as if he had reached the edge of a veil, and this tree was the single thread that held that veil in place. The whispers had quieted, no longer an urgent hum, but a gentle, expectant hush, like the silence before a storm. With a steadying breath, he approached the tree. He reached out a hand, fingers grazing the bark, and felt a surge of warmth, a current of energy that pulsed beneath the rough surface. The tree seemed to respond to his touch, its silver leaves trembling as if in recognition. A soft light began to emanate from its branches, casting a glow that was neither natural nor entirely magical, an ethereal shimmer that wrapped around him like a cloak. Then, with a subtle creak, the tree's branches began to part, spreading outward in a slow, graceful movement, like a curtain being drawn back. The leaves shifted, opening to reveal a narrow pathway that seemed to lead into the very heart of the forest. A strange light filled the path, shimmering like liquid moonlight, guiding the way forward. Erendor felt his breath catch as he stared down the path. It was as if he were looking into another world, a place where reality bent and twisted, where the rules of his world no longer held sway. The ground beyond was covered in moss that glowed a soft, inviting green, and strange plants with translucent leaves sprouted from the sides of the trail, each leaf pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Steeling himself, Erendor stepped forward, feeling the weight of the forest shift around him as he crossed the threshold. The air grew thick, heavy with a strange perfume, the scent of flowers that had never felt sunlight, of earth that had not been disturbed for centuries. Shadows danced around him, flickering in patterns that seemed to mimic the constellations above. A silent map of stars traced in darkness. As he walked, the whispers resumed, but they were different now, deeper, slower, each word a solemn intonation that resonated through his mind. It was as if the forest itself was speaking, its voice ancient and vast, filled with knowledge that stretched back to the beginning of time. Erendor felt himself drawn forward, his senses both heightened and subdued, as if he were floating through a dream. The path twisted and turned, leading him through glades bathed in silvery light, past pools of water that reflected his image in strange, distorted ways. The landscape shifted as he walked, as if it were alive, reshaping itself with each step he took. And then, as he rounded a bend in the path, he found himself standing before a meadow unlike any he had seen. The ground was blanketed in a carpet of soft silver moss, and at the center stood a pool of water, so still and clear it mirrored the sky with perfect clarity. At the water's edge, a single fern stood, its leaves glistening with dew that shimmered like stars. This was the silver fern the whispers had spoken of, a marker on his journey, a symbol that he had reached the threshold of something even more profound. He approached the fern, kneeling beside it, feeling the weight of the forest's gaze upon him. The air was thick with anticipation, and he sensed that he was on the brink of a revelation. As he looked into the pool's surface, he saw not only his own reflection, but also glimpses of another realm, a world that shimmered with an otherworldly light, filled with landscapes that twisted and changed with each heartbeat. He could see mountains that glowed with inner fire, forests filled with trees whose leaves sang as they moved, rivers that sparkled with a light that seemed alive. He realized with a sense of awe that the veil was thinning, that he was about to glimpse a world that existed beyond his own. The whispers grew soft, falling silent, as if the forest itself were holding its breath, waiting to reveal its hidden truths. Erendor knew he stood on the edge of something far greater than himself, a world woven from mysteries as old as the stars, hidden behind a veil of silver leaves and whispers. And as he gazed into the pool, he felt a surge of wonder and fear, realizing that once he stepped through, he could never turn back. The silence was profound as Erendor took his first step into the realm beyond the veil, a silence that seemed to stretch through time itself, layered with the weight of countless lives. It was not simply the absence of sound, but quietness alive with echoes, whispers of moments long past, memories caught in a web of silence. Around him the landscape shifted subtly, as if adjusting to his presence. The ground beneath his feet felt softer, almost unreal, and the air was heavy, thick with the perfume of unfamiliar flowers that seemed to bloom only in shadow. The world he had entered was a place of strange contradictions, where the boundaries between the real and the imagined blurred, and every glance held a secret waiting to be uncovered. Erendor looked around, his sharp eyes taking in the surreal beauty of the land. Strange trees with translucent leaves lined the pathway, their branches curving like arches above his head. The leaves whispered faintly as he passed, their voices soft and melancholic, like fragments of songs forgotten with the turning of the ages. And in those whispers, he sensed the echoes of lives that had once walked here, beings who had entered this realm, leaving behind fragments of themselves in this timeless expanse. He moved deeper, feeling as though he were walking through a memory, a world woven from dreams and shadows. Creatures moved in the periphery of his vision, their forms barely discernible, beings of light and mist, with eyes like starlight, watching him with a quiet, knowing gaze. They were not of his world, yet he sensed no malice in their presence, only a kind of sorrow, as though they were bound here, caught in an endless twilight. At the heart of this strange land, he came upon a crystal pool, its surface impossibly still, reflecting not only the stars above, but memories woven into its depths. The water was clear yet unfathomable, as if it held 1,000 secrets, each ripple an echo of a life, a moment lost to time. Erendor knelt beside it, gazing into its depths, and felt as though he was staring into a mirror of his own soul, a reflection that showed not just his face, but the entirety of his journey, all the choices that had led him here. As he looked, the water began to shimmer and visions appeared, scenes of an ancient world, a time when elves and spirits roamed together beneath skies filled with starlight. He saw figures moving through the forest, their faces familiar yet distant, bound by a harmony that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the land itself. This was a time before separation, when the realm of the living and the realm of shadows were as one, a unity that had since faded into myth. Erendor felt a deep longing as he watched, a yearning for a world that no longer existed, a world that lived only in the memories of the forest and in the hearts of those who still listened. He realized that this place, the land of echoes, was a fragment of that lost time, preserved in whispers and shadows, a memory held in the leaves of the forest. As he watched, he became aware of a figure standing across the pool from him, a figure he hadn't noticed before. It was a woman, her form ethereal, her face hidden beneath a hood that seemed woven from the fabric of night itself. Her eyes, when she looked at him, glowed with a light that was both fierce and sorrowful, as though she bore the weight of ages within her gaze. "Why have you come here, elf?" Her voice was a whisper that carried across the water, blending with the soft murmurs of the leaves. Erendor hesitated, the answer elusive even to himself. "I seek understanding," he replied at last. "I seek to know what lies beyond the whispers." The woman regarded him in silence, and he felt her gaze reach deep within him, sifting through his thoughts, his memories. Then she extended a hand, gesturing to the pool. "What you seek lies within, but it will not come without a price. Every truth, every memory, is a burden carried by those who choose to know." He felt the weight of her words, felt them sink into him like stones into still water. Yet his resolve did not waver. He reached out, his fingertips grazing the surface of the pool, and felt a surge of energy, a rush of emotions and memories that were not his own. The whispers grew louder, rising to a crescendo, filling his mind with voices and visions. Lives lived and lost, promises made and broken, a cycle that had repeated through ages. He drew his hand back, breathing heavily, feeling the echo of those lives within him, their sorrow mingling with his own. The woman watched him with a solemn expression, her gaze softened by a hint of compassion. "You have glimpsed the truth," she said, her voice gentle now. "This land is woven from the memories of those who came before, bound here by a vow to protect what remains. We are the echoes, the guardians of a world lost to time, and now you carry a part of us with you." Erendor understood. He felt the weight of those memories settle within him, a quiet ache that would remain with him always, a reminder of the lives bound to this forest, lives that whispered their secrets to those who dared to listen. As he rose to leave, he felt a sense of gratitude, a silent connection to the shadows and whispers that had guided him. He knew that he was forever changed, bound to the land of echoes by the memory he now carried, a piece of their world woven into his heart. And as he turned to leave, the woman's final words lingered in the air, a quiet promise that resonated through the silence. "Remember us." Erendor's footsteps were soundless as he traced his way back along the path, his heart burdened with the weight of the echoes that lingered in his mind. The journey through the forest felt different now, as though each step resonated with the memories of those who had come before. A silent bond linking him to the souls who had surrendered themselves to the forest's timeless hold. The land of echoes had left its mark on him, etching into his spirit a knowledge he could neither fully understand nor forget. The whispers had softened, fading into a low hum that wove through the trees, a gentle reminder of his passage through realms unseen. He sensed that they no longer spoke to him as a stranger, but as one who had tasted their secrets, who bore their memories within. Even the shadows seemed to part before him with a kind of reverence, acknowledging his return from the depths of their world. He passed through the silvery glade where the ancient tree stood, its branches swaying in a breeze that felt like a sigh. And he touched its bark once more, feeling the warmth of its silent wisdom flow into him. The tree seemed to pulse beneath his fingertips, its own memories merging with his, a final blessing before he departed. Yet as he neared the forest's edge, a sense of unease crept into his heart. He knew he was leaving behind a world that existed in the space between moments, a realm where time was as fluid as a dream. And as he walked, he realized that a question still lingered, a whisper that had yet to reveal its answer. Just as he reached the threshold of the forest, he heard a soft voice, as gentle as a breath, rising from the shadows around him. Erendor. He paused, turning to see a faint shape materialize in the dim light, a figure cloaked in darkness, a guardian of the forest's secrets. It was the same woman he had seen by the crystal pool, her face hidden beneath her hood. Yet her presence was unmistakable, as ancient as the forest itself. "There is one last thing you must know before you leave," she whispered, her voice echoing through the trees, mingling with the faint rustle of leaves. The whispers, they are more than memories. They are the living bond that holds the forest together, a promise woven through the ages. Erendor watched her, his heart still as he waited for her words to unfold. The forest was not always a place of shadows and silence, she continued. It was once vibrant, a realm of light and life. But in an age long past, a great sorrow fell upon it, a loss that fractured the world itself. The whispers you hear are fragments of a vow to protect the forest from fading into nothingness, to keep its spirit alive through voices that will never fall silent. He felt a pang of grief, understanding now that the whispers were not merely memories. They were a sacrifice, a promise of eternal vigilance made by those who had chosen to remain to guard the forest from oblivion. "We are the guardians of the lost," she murmured. "And now, so are you." Erendor felt the weight of her words settle into him, a quiet acceptance of the role he now carried. He knew he would never truly leave the forest, that a part of him would forever walk its shadowed paths, listening to the echoes of lives bound by ancient promises. He bowed his head, offering his silent thanks to the spirits that had guided him, feeling their presence wrap around him in a gentle embrace. With one last look, he stepped over the threshold, feeling the forest's whispers fade as he crossed back into his own world. The air grew lighter, the shadows thinning as sunlight broke through the trees. He felt a strange emptiness, a longing to return to the hidden realm he had left behind. Yet he knew he carried its essence within him. The voices, the memories, the whispers that would forever guide his path. As he walked back toward the familiar lands of his kin, he felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet pride in the knowledge he now held. He was a part of the forest of whispers, and it too was a part of him. Its secrets were no longer distant mysteries, but lived within him, breathing through his own memories, binding him to the forest's timeless spirit. And in the silence of his heart, he heard the final whisper, a promise from the land he had left behind. We are with you, Erindor, and you are with us. The words echoed through him, soft as the touch of a leaf, a melody he would carry forever, a song of shadows and secrets, of lives remembered and lost. He knew that wherever he walked, the forest's whispers would follow, guiding him in ways unseen, a bond that would never fade. And as he disappeared into the morning light, he felt their presence, a gentle hum at the edge of his mind, a reminder that the forest of whispers would forever be his home, a place where secrets lived, bound to him for eternity.